It's the Pastor Brock podcast, coming at you live from my daughter's playroom, where I also keep my computer equipment. How are you, boys and girls? Good to talk to you guys again. So I just got an excellent question. By the way, anytime if you send me questions and they're just like of epic tier, I'm going to make a podcast episode because I think more people should listen to them. So a buddy of mine asks, why is it that when you move on from somebody, you break up with somebody, and then you see them with someone else, all of a sudden you want to be back with them again? And this seems like a very simple question, but it has profound, far-reaching effects on really human life in general. All right, so there's this internal sense, which I call the discriminator, which basically this internal sense that I'm either better than this person or worse than this person. I'm either smarter than this person, less smart than this person. I'm either better good looking or less good looking, more eloquent, less eloquent, right? So we go through this life basically judging people, right? And basically assessing their value. Now that's intimately connected with love, right? We've talked about this before. Probably most of you guys have heard me talk about this, not on the Pastor Brock podcast, but in VR chat, that love is about ascribing worth to another, to say someone has value, say they have worth, and we'll get more into this in a second. But so I love people who I think they have a lot of value, and I don't those who don't, right? And so usually we break up with someone because okay, so we have this internal conception, this discriminator of ourselves, right? That basically judges people. And the basic categories of valuing, like, oh, she's a 7, she's a 9, she's a 10, right? And so we this kind of that same idea kind of comes up. And so if I feel like I'm a 7 and I feel the person I'm with is a 7 or higher, I want to be with them. And if they're a 7 or lower, then I'm like, oh, dating beneath myself. I got to go find someone else. And so sometimes we're in a relationship with somebody, and we thought they were a 7 or higher, and then after realizing their foibles and faults and their shortcomings and maybe some annoying things that come along with them, now they're a 7 or lower. And now I'm dating beneath myself and I break up. But as soon as I see them with someone else, oh, well, someone else values them, and maybe that's someone else. Maybe he's even better, looking than I am, or whatever the case may be. Oh, well, maybe I failed in assessing this person's value. Oh, maybe they really were a 7 or a higher, and I just was short-sighted for a moment. Oh, and see, now that they're a 7 or a higher, now you want to be with them again. You see? And around this goes. Oftentimes people, especially in college relationships, I remember when I was in university, people were, there's this like merry-go-round, right? You date the person, they'd annoy you or bother you in some way, you'd get off the merry-go-round, right? And then they'd see them with someone else and you get back on, and like relationships would go on this way for a couple months until people came to their senses, like, if I if I get back with this person, it's just going to have the same thing happen again. But here this how this shifts to very profound religious truth is that Christ calls us to value all people as 10, to see every single person as having inexpressible value. And oh my, how that changes just our interaction with other people, how we love other people, how we show concern for other people. And so, like, when we see that internal discriminator devaluing people, oh man, they're stupid, they're an idiot, they're awkward, they have a weird voice, like, and listen next time for that internal discriminator that kind of ticks people down the rung, and realize, no, this is contrary to God's will. God's will is that we would see all people as of inexpressible value, because he saw all people of inexpressible value. He was the one that said each and every one of us has the value of being worth going to the cross. And just imagine for a moment nails driven through your hands, both hands, nails driven through your feet, and having to alternate between the inexpressible pain of pushing off your feet to get an inhale, and then having to put all the weight on your hands on the exhale. And there's just this kind of like repeating cycle every time you have to breathe between excruciating pain in your feet and your hands. It's just inexpressible. And Jesus said to each and every one of us, we're worth that. And we are transformed by that love. When we see God's love for us, it makes us and desires us to value other people. It makes us and desire us to see other people as tens. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily. Okay, if you got now bringing it back to the dating piece for a minute. I'm not saying that like find the be married to the worst person you possibly can, like that has annoys you in all the factors, and that's the person you want to see as a 10 and date them. No, I'm not saying that. But though actually there's a story in the Bible where that kind of exactly happened. If you look at the book of Hosea, God tells the prophet Hosea to marry this woman named Gomer. She's like, a very promiscuous woman, and she's constantly having affairs on him. And like, why would God want Hosea to marry Gomer? And the answer is that being in that unequal relationship where he's being very loving and faithful and she's sleeping around, actually in that relationship, Hosea gets a sense of what it's like to be God. Because we are the ones that are constantly sleeping around on him, whoring after other gods of pleasure and money and esteem and doing all sorts of things that are contrary to our conscience. And so it's actually in those moments that we get to understand God most rightly. So anyway, this one's going on a little bit, so I'll cut it off here. But yeah, so just have that sense of the internal discriminator next time you're interacting with people. God bless and keep you. Oh, you've been listening to the Pastor Brock podcast, live from his children's playroom, filled with Lego blocks and princess dresses. This is the Pastor Brock podcast.